Hey, what's up, nerds? PaulMConti. Just doing a random paint and chat because I don't think I've ever actually done this before. Um, I also haven't properly gushed about AOS 2, and I haven't finished painting my army for the GT in like 3 days. So I need to finish speed painting some Blight Kings, and I need to go be opinionated because I'm really good at that. So yeah, I've been doing this like living article, I guess, on the uh, 2D3 website that was started from Ryan, formerly of Ozhammer. I was just kind of going through all of the details of uh, all of Jesus Christ. Somebody sent me a message live, and now I'm distracted by the live chat. Jesus Christ, this is not going to be good. Somehow I think I have OCD and ADHD at the same time, and that is a disaster. You know what else is a disaster? This guy just broke. Now I have to fix him. That sucks. Anyway, AOS 2. AOS 2. So I've been tracking um all of the actual rules changes that have happened, and most of my reporting on it thus far has basically just been like factual based. So I wanted to kind of just dig into get into the feels. How do I feel about it? Um, and generally, I feel good. Feels good on the whole. Um, Command points are definitely the thing that like everybody's freaking out about. And I think it is an incredible addition to the game. I think here's my prediction for what's going to happen with command points. You ready? First few months of command points are going to be a total shit show of people coming up with crazy combos and insane stuff that they can do with command points, and we're going to see some crazy armies that rush across the table and kill things very, very quickly. It works sometimes bin right next to um, our murder host armies, and we will continue on with Age of Sigmar as normal, and everyone will be playing command points more or less the way that they were intended, I think, to be played, which not reading too much intention into it, but I think in general it was supposed to be adding extra strategic depth to the game, adding more options, letting you use more heroes. Definitely looking forward to. Um, so yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. Oh, and that unfuck everything they fucked up with the release, but you know, c'est la vie. I think overall, um, good players will very quickly adjust to abusive behavior, and it won't really be an issue. I'm really excited about the new command abilities that are coming along with this. I've got to say, I really, really like at the double, and God, what is the other ability even called? Uh, Reroll charges. Yay, whatever it is, rerolling charges. Here's the strategic thing or gameplay thing that does. Um, One of the things that's just been absolutely killing me about Stormcast is that apart from your battalions that do shenanigans, all of your stuff drops in 9 inches away. Except for hunters, but hunters suck. So let's not talk about hunters. Um, but dropping in 9 inches away and then you get to charge on that turn, but now you get a reroll. That significantly increases your odds of making a successful charge when you either drop out of the heavens or you lightning chariot or any of those things. So it takes those abilities that were questionable and makes them really solid, I think. Um, so I think a lot of I think we're going to see some new life and competitiveness in Stormcast. What I had been toying around with in lists for a while was the Knight Vexilor. Why? Because of the math of getting to reroll charges after something drops in 9 inches away, suddenly making that a viable option. And then here we are. We just get to blow a command point to do it if we fail a charge, which is really awesome. And the fact that you, for at the double and re-rolling charges, whatever the hell that's called, both of those are like after the fact abilities. Like you get to make the attempt and fail and then do that. I think that's really good. I think it would really be crappy if it was just you had to make that decision ahead of time. It makes some Bretonnian abilities suck, like the Bretonnian Lord on Pegasus. It makes his command ability terrible because it's just objectively better to be able to just pick a guy that has already failed the charge and not spend your command point until you actually fail a charge. But the way things are looking, I think Bretonnia is just like totally going away anyway. I think that everything compendium is going to become legends, and it will no longer have points, and it will no longer be in tournaments. I think this is going to be like the perfect cut for GW to just say, you can still play with your toys. We're just not going to let you play with your toys competitively. So that's my general thought. I like the dynamics that it adds to it. Yes, AOS coach, totally agree. Bretonnia is dead. It's sad. I really liked. I was really loving the period of time that Bretonnia was part of Free People. That was like the golden age of Free People, and then I feel like they have just been a fallen empire since then. I don't think we're going to get anything new in the new edition for Free People that's going to make them good. Not that they ever really were the best. But I think they lost some competitiveness, and I think that competitiveness is going to continue to go down. But you know, it's not every army can be good, and you're always now like one general's handbook release away from your favorite army being like totally tits. So, you know, whatevs. Also, Mr. Haywo Twitch saw in the chat dropping a message in. Get at me on Twitter. We need to get you on the show sometime. Your most recent video on the Stormcast, absolute comedy gold. Totally on point. I cried a little on the inside. It was amazing. We need to get you on Warhammered. Even if you're a teetotaler like Vince. The funny thing about Warhammered, not to go on too much of a tangent, is how little drinking now goes on that show. So I think it was like the second episode of that, maybe. I actually like drank till I blacked out, and that was really bad. And I have not watched that show back to see what an ass of myself I made. Nor do I really want to. So we're just going to leave that one in history, let people enjoy my drunken nonsense. maybe I was just being, I don't know. Half the time when I drink, I get really quiet. So maybe that was just nothing. To answer somebody's question, I think there was a question about this in the chat floating by. I am busily painting my Blight Kings. I had 10 more to finish up for the tournament this weekend. I am being a dick and running a Plague Touch warband with 25 Blight Kings. Feel free to leave all the hate for me that you would like. Um, yeah, uh, 25 Blight Kings and a Plague Touch warband. Going to Triumph GT in New Jersey. Hope to see some of you there. Otherwise, not so much. No, I hope to see everybody there. It is shaping up to be a really big, awesome tournament that is far exceeding everybody's expectations that is involved. So I like to see things blow up. Blow up in a good way. So yeah. Anyway, continuing on babbling about AOS 2, because I need to properly gush about this stuff. Because I really, really like everything that I have seen for second edition Age of Sigmar. And I feel like I just haven't hit it enough yet. The turn priority thing, I am a really, really big fan of the turn priority rule. Once I came to understand from a game design and mechanics perspective, like what it actually did to the game, I was like, we can never ever get rid of this without fundamentally changing Age of Sigmar. And I will be doing a video on it at some point. Vince also is going to be doing a video on it at some point, and I feel like I need to like race him to the finish line to get that video out there. The change that they made to the priority role, I think, is like just enough of a touch that they can say, we listened to the people that were bitching about this and we did something, without really having like that material of a change to it. So you're still basically doing the same thing. I think what's really interesting though on the flip side, and I wonder if they really thought all of this through, was that they changed the priority role, but at the same time with the new predatory spells, like all the cinematic magic and all that jazz, they gave a new incentive to give away priority, which is really interesting. Now you don't just give away priority to potentially get a double turn. You are giving away priority in order to get something else in return for that. So it's like that incentivizes giving away the priority, but by decreasing the odds of the double turn happening, that means that there's even more complexity to that decision, because it's not just a coin flip. Now you only have like a 40% chance of getting that double turn. And like, all right, and we're back. Was briefly interrupted for unknown reasons. Probably because I'm in my basement and it's like a lead line down here. I honestly don't really know why my reception in my basement is so epically bad. Because I am basically like directly under my router. There is just like a floor between me and my router right now. So it doesn't make any sense that I would have an interrupted connection. But I am far from an expert in technology. So anyway, and we're back again. Potentially turn priority. I hope I'm not like completely defusing. But The choice of turn priority gets really interesting when there are the perpetual spells on the table, and not just having like a coin flip. That there's more at stake than a coin flip on the next turn to give away priority in order to potentially get that control over one of those spells, is really interesting. Adds another layer of complexity to that whole turn priority mechanic. Um, I think it's just a mechanic that gets you thinking in ways that um, I'm going to put my jaded jerk hat on for a second. It makes you actually think. It makes you prepare. Some people don't like doing that. That's not my problem. That's a them problem. If they don't like thinking, that's not a me problem. Um, so yeah, the one of the things that I'm still a little iffy on is the roles of the mortal realms and how that's going to fit in with like how everything works and how all of that works. So it looks like basically what they're saying is you're going to choose a realm that your army is from, and that's going to determine a pool of artifacts that you may get to choose from in addition to the artifacts that are in your book. And then what realm your game is taking place in is going to determine which spell lores you have access to in that game. I'm not sure how I feel about that dichotomy. I kind of like the idea of like it all revolving around like what army you choose, like what realm you choose your army to be from. I think that would have been a more interesting way to do it. But we're gonna have to see what the actual rules end up looking like when we get them, because we still don't really have the full rules text on how that works. We just got an article that was like, "Hey, there's a thing. Here we go." Um, so yeah, I generally like the idea. I think maybe 84 artifacts was a little over the top, some overkill there. Don't necessarily need 84 artifacts. Some artifacts good. Um, yeah, I would agree with the comment that was just dropped in the chat, that this is likely going to get screwed with by TOs. Let's face it, a lot of AOS rule design is very modular to begin with. A lot of things can be changed, and it's functionally still the same game with some tweaks that are kind of personal taste, and they've always really encouraged people to make their own fun, modify the rules, house rule things, do whatever. And I think that's going to continue. And I think, at least like in my local scene, a lot of people never use the scenery rules. And I think this is just going to fall into that category as well, as just like another category of things that, uh, people kind of go their own way on. Maybe it doesn't get used at all. Um, maybe it is just done differently. I don't know. We're gonna have to see how all of this works. Um, they also toned down, at least in my opinion. I have seen some pushback when I said this to some other people, that they toned down the scenery rules, um, and so that they're less powerful abilities. Um, in some ways, they're a little bit stronger, but in general, I think general broad game impact, like they're less impactful. Like Deadly just can't randomly slay your Maw Crusher anymore, which seems correct. Um, there also seems to be some funny wording on it that may kind of mess with things. I don't know, but let's try and stay positive. Stay on the positive things. Um, I just want to say officially, I called it measuring base to base. Yeah, I called it. Why? Because everybody, including people on live stream on Warhammer TV, were doing it. I don't know anybody ever that measured model to model. I think that was a ludicrous pipe dream to begin with. Just like the 4-page rule book in general, I think was always a ludicrous pipe dream. But that's, a tale for another day of how that was a marketing gimmick gone wrong. But I think that's, in general, measuring from the base, good. It creates consistency. They're also going to have a chart of quote-unquote suggested base sizes, which we all know every TO is going to turn into the mandatory base sizes. Probably inclusive of Warhammer World. So, I just anticipate that it is definitely just gonna like their standard basing. They're moving towards standard basing. The fact that they're releasing a chart that says this is what we recommend means, the same thing that compendium meant like 2 years ago. Do this for now, and it's going to be a hard rule later. And it's funny that, when the compendium was first introduced, a lot of people really called that was their start of a slow phase out of all of those things. And a lot of people were like, no, they're never going to do that. They're going to keep these things around. That's what they say they want to do. Nope. It was the start of the slow phase out. Maybe it wasn't necessarily intentional then, but that's pretty clear that that's what actually happened. And I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with the compendium going away. Most of the compendium is Bretonia, Tomb Kings, and special characters. So really, how much do we really care about this? Yeah, they could have made all of those guys generic. I don't think anyone would really have been that excited about it. Like all of these new forces are not fleshed out enough for it to make sense to have all of these special characters for them, or even, I'll use Free People as an example because it's the army that I'm most familiar with that has the major compendium legacy stuff problem. Like there were like 1 million special characters, and there's just not a purpose in Free People to have excuse me, that many random heroes. I know I just did a video on here's a whole bunch of extra heroes you could make without trying that hard, but like there were like 10 or 15 special characters that got the axe out of the Empire alone. Like, come on, guys! Like it needed to go, because that stuff just doesn't fit in this new world aesthetic at all, and it doesn't make sense. And they're a faction that in the fluff has just basically not been explored yet, and that's okay. They'll get to them eventually. But I think for right now, it's reasonable that they're working kind of a few factions at a time. Piling in combat. Here's a really interesting one. I think if this is what I think it is, I think the new pile-in rule is like one of the more significant rule changes that they made, and it's basically changing one word in a sentence that completely changes the meaning of how everything worked. And I kind of have a beef with the pile-in rule to begin with from back in the day. Um, because the literal pile-in rule in the 4-page rules, and I have it up on my screen, so I will just literally read word for word what piling in was. When you pile in, you may move each model in the unit up to 3 inches towards the closest enemy model. That's all it said. Then they did a video on Warhammer TV explaining pile-in. And if you were to describe the if you were actually to put in rules form what they were doing, it was basically the new pile-in rule. But it's what was written and what they were telling you it meant were two very different things if you used a fairly strict reading of the wording. And I thought that was really bad. When rules are worded poorly, it drives me insane. I come from the universe of Magic the Gathering, where wording is very intentional and very standardized. And I also come from, career-wise, I was in tax forever. I was a tax accountant for a really long time, and reading laws and court rulings and those sorts of things. Words mean things, and there needs to be consistency among what stuff means. And you have to look at something and go, here is the rule as written. Here is the rule as being interpreted. How do I reconcile these two things? And what did they do on Warhammer TV? It made no sense compared to this old rule. It's basically the new rule, but the subtle difference that is going to fuck everything is that the pile-in move, let me just read the new pile-in, and I will put the emphasis on the correct syllables for what I'm talking about. A unit can make a pile-in move if it is within 3 inches of an enemy unit or has made a charge move in the same turn. So, oh, no, I was reading something into that wasn't there. Let me continue. If this is the case, you can move each model in the unit up to 3 inches. Each model must finish its pile-in move at least as close to the nearest enemy model as it was at the start of the move. Now, there's a couple of key words in here. At least as close to. That means that if your model is in base contact with an enemy model, in pile-in, it can move 3 inches as long as it remains in base contact. That means that it can, let's say you have a big blob of skeletons attacking a monster of some sort. It means when you pile in, you can kind of squish around. You can slide around. That whole slide thing that everybody was discouraging for the first 3 years of Age of Sigmar, guess what? You're allowed to do it. And after the FAQs and that video that they made on Warhammer TV, everyone was kind of skirting the slide rule by their models in such a way that they did not ever come into base contact with the enemy model, so that whenever they piled in, they simply piled in 0.5 millimeter closer, measured base to base with the model previously, so they could still slide around. Now it just required careful measurement to actually get you to do what you wanted to do. But now, the pile-in slide is an official move. The other interesting thing that I'm curious and that I think really needs an FAQ ASAP is where it says to the nearest enemy model. That is singular. And the rules lawyer in me says, what happens when I am in base contact with two models? Do I have to end my pile-in move within, or just as close, like let's say I'm in base contact, one model is in base contact with two enemy models. Does the end of my pile-in move have to also remain in base contact with both of those models? Or, as I would suggest from the way this rule is written, that it only needs to remain as close to one of the two models that it is in base contact with in order to be able to do the pile-in slide. In general, what this, I think, is going to do is go back to what was happening early on in Age of Sigmar, where pile-in just became the blob around your enemy phase. And yes, I agree. If two or more models are tied for nearest, you can pick one that probably should be what it says. To actually do what they want it to do, I think it probably needs to actually say, if there is a tie, it must remain equally close to both. Excuse me. Little dry down here. I ran out of water already. I don't usually talk this much in life, so this is just sort of me blathering on. But I think this is potentially going to be a problem. This is something that TOs are going to need to address in their FAQs in tournament packs. And it's going to be something that people are going to fuck around with and abuse. I know I will. I take the tack with Age of Sigmar that you just abuse the shit out of something until GW figures it out, issues an FAQ, and fixes the rule. And they're not going to fix the rule until people abuse it regularly. So in order to fix the rule to fix a rule that you don't like, you have to abuse the rule and be a dick, and they'll fix it. It's just kind of the sad reality of it. Look out, sir. This is really in the same sort of vein as the turn priority rule. I think this was like 99% all about shutting up people that were bitching about things. I think this was about the lightest touch possible that they could have given to this rule to address that issue. My problem here is that, like, although heroes are obviously becoming more generally you want to have things that are powerful also be vulnerable so that it balances things out. So I'm a little bit annoyed with this personally. I don't really think that this was warranted. It creates some bad rules interactions, which I think they'll probably fix either with FAQs or in the General's Handbook. Currently, like, the rule as written is that it's just a monster that cannot get it. I think that really needs to be extended to behemoths as well in the General's Handbook. I understand why that is not in the core rulebook, because Uh, Behemoth is a General's Handbook concept and not a core rulebook concept, so it's not going to be in there. However, um, I think it needs to be possibly also War Machine. Um, the thing that gets me about this is the following scenario, right? You have, say, a Celestial Hurricanum. Celestial Hurricanum is not a monster. It is, however, a hero. And therefore, it can get a Lookout Sir roll. That, or Lookout Sir modifier. We're not rolling anymore. Thank you, Jesus. So we get the Lookout Sir modifier, potentially. What bugs me is that the Celestial Hurricanum is huge, and all it needs is 3 models from your army, uh, you know, within, or a unit with 3 or more models within 3 inches of it. Given the size and shape of the Celestial Hurricanum, it is entirely possible that the unit which is shooting would not even be able to see the friendly units that you have that are triggering the Lookout Sir modifier. You could hide 3 models behind the Celestial Hurricanum out of line of sight of your enemy shooting, and they could be protecting the Hurricanum from gunfire despite being completely invisible to them somehow. Sometimes you just got to write rules and hope they work. And that's kind of, sometimes the rule has to be more about the rule than the rule having like verisimilitude, and that's okay. That's just annoying to me. Hopefully the General's Handbook also just says Behemoth, and that fixes that problem. So I think this is also like the least offensive way that they could have done this rule. I was not ever a proponent of shooting is overpowered in Age of Sigmar. I have played very shooty armies. I have played armies that have no shooting and are victims of bow fire and gunfire and cannonade. From both sides of that, I have never really thought it was a problem. And it just factored into that part of the risk you run in certain armies is your hero might get sniped. And you need to design your army in such a way that you can deal with that and have that be okay. Have that be the thing where it's like, okay, well, you're not shooting at my hero, or you're shooting at my hero. Well, at least you're not shooting at this other thing that I don't want you to shoot instead. And that's kind of always how I tried to build my forces, where you have to put your opponent in a position where they have to make a bad choice about deciding what thing they were shooting, and really there was no good choice. And so I think this takes a little bit of that away, but ultimately still, like, good shooting is still going to take out heroes. It's just slightly less likely to happen, which I don't really care. I think if they're going to change a rule like this, it could have been far worse. We could have gotten the 40k rule. We could have gotten the 8th edition Lookout Sir rule. Whatever. It's not that big of a deal. Magic. Jeez, I'm not even going to get into Magic. I will say big plus on the 30-inch Unbind. I think that's going to fix a lot of problems. That's going to curb Tzeentch a lot, I think. Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield getting powered down, I think, was really unnecessary, unless we're going to see like other versions of those pop up in all of the realm spells, so that it makes more sense that your generic spells are really powered down things that you don't really want to cast that much. It annoys me that they did reroll ones um, for Mystic Shield, and the number one reason why I say that is because there are so many units that already have that ability that there's certain armies where that, like casting Mystic Shield, might never have any effect because you're already rerolling your ones to save. Getting more spells, cool. All of the realm spells, cool. All of the potential with all of the living spells, that I think is cool. I'm excited to see what that does. I like that really powerful spells will be costing you points now. So that's definitely cool. Summoning, I really like what they did with summoning. I think this is the right direction in general for summoning. And if you put together the summoning changes with all of the other little drops that they've put in all of the faction focus articles, basically what it looks like they're doing is some armies get mechanics where they get to bring new units onto the board through some sort of resource management, and most of them your opponent has some way to interfere with it. On the flip side, if your army doesn't have that, most of your big stuff's getting cheaper. So I think they're kind of doing a backdoor points fix to it. They're tweaking some knobs. I like it. I like that summoning is really summoning again, and it's not broken. Although, if you check out my Math Hammer video on contagion points, summoning might still be kind of broken for Nurgle. Bringing on like 40 to 60 extra plague bearers in a game is that can change some things. Yeah, so that's basically everything. I think they're fixing Balewind Vortex. It's going to be one of the endless spells. So your opponent just being able to unbind Balewind Vortex is going to be pretty funny. Also, one of the things that I noticed in one of the pictures in one of the preview articles, there was a picture of the Balewind Vortex, and there was nothing on top of it. Like, there was no wizard sitting on top of it. So I'm wondering... they said that it got a total rewrite, so I'm wondering if part of the total rewrite is it doesn't at all do what it used to do, and it's just one of the other, predatory spells or permanent spells or whatever. Yeah, so that's about it. I got some decent progress on my Blight Kings. I'm not going for perfect on these guys. I'm just going for decent enough for tabletop quality that I can, say I brought a fully painted army to a GT. The painting awards are not a thing that I ever really care about. I care more about the sportsmanship awards and, the best general awards, the actual wins and losses, than I do about painting. I paint for fun. I paint for me. I don't paint because I'm any good at it. Just kind of the way it is. So time is ticking down. I actually booked my hotel today, finally, for the GT, which is good. And for anybody else that is interested, tickets for the Las Vegas Open just went on sale today. And that's super tempting. I might have to find money in the war chest for that, or Adepticon next year. So yeah, I think that's going to be it for now. I need to pack it in, head to bed, and all of that. Should be good. Just a little preview, since I'm sitting here working on this stuff, and you guys haven't actually seen really what I was working on, and I haven't really posted many pictures or anything, but here is, if we can get a good focused shot of it.
Nope, not happening, is it? No, I was trying to share a Blight King, but his he's just blurry. Even if I put him near my face. No. No. I don't know. We need to troubleshoot that. I'll be putting pictures of the army and all of that stuff up on Twitter and what such. If I remember to, after this video is done uploading, I'll be posting links to stuff down below. But yeah, that's it for me for now, folks. I'm going to go head to bed like a responsible adult for a change, and I will talk to you all later. See ya.